Is that your only question? Do you have
No,
more?
no, I did explain to them, my background is in business, and I had entertained that when I ran. And I do feel that it complements the overall operation. But I feel politics and a business or city manager can work in a partnership. But that's my question to you.
So Kingston Citizens is a platform that's been around for about 8 years, as you know, that has tried to explore ideas and current events to help to educate the public on whatever might be up. We've done comprehensive planning. We've done, we actually did a reval presentation with GAR back in the day when they were here. We've hosted city officials. We've hosted chief of police. We've really done dozens of these formats. So never has Kingston Citizens been at the helm of starting some sort of a petition or movement. It's always been about education and advocacy, always. So this is really a stepping stone in given the confusion in Kingston and how city government works for most citizens, most of us, myself included, understanding the charter, understanding code, coming to learn that they're different. How are they updated? What is city manager form of government? What is strong mayor form of government? How do things change if that's, what the community wants? So this is a stepping stone in getting all on the same page and understanding different aspects of city government.
I understand that, and I'll give the next person an opportunity, but it was also in Ward 9, and Mike Madsen was the alderman at the time, and I was just interested this evening in the perspective of being a member and born and raised here all my life, 60 plus years, if there was a panel that was also going to be included. So I don't see that.
What do you mean a panel though?
Of the Kingston citizens, you said we have had all of these.
KingstonCitizens.org is presenting this evening's.
But where are the Kingston citizens that are a part of your panel?
I'm not quite sure I understand.
Do you have the following?
Do I have a follow?
Members of Kingston, like 9 or 10 people that have your same beliefs.
My same belief. What's my belief?
The educational forum is tonight.
Okay, so there are citizens that make up KingstonCitizens.org that has rotated and changed based on.
Okay.
You mean who helps to organize?
No, when you have a group, you have people that are interested aside from one person. I thought we were going to see that, but I don't see it. So thank you for your time. I do appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
We're here. Here we are.
We are the Kingston citizens, all of us in this room. And the idea of these panels is generally to bring guests who are experts in their field as a way of helping us understand from another perspective. So for instance, when Rebecca started this program many years ago, I was the Deputy Director of Planning, and I came with my director, and together with Suzanne Cahill, there were 75 people in the room, and together we discussed the potential for having a comprehensive plan. These 75 people became very active in many groups and in many ways in a kind of grassroots effort to create civic engagement on a number of levels: agriculture, the reval, community policing, trails. And they actually began to carry it out. So the people in this room are the citizens of Kingston and are, in a sense, KingstonCitizens.org. So the panels are really intended to help bring other points of view to the city as a form of public education. That's what the mission of Kingston Citizens is. I hope that helps. And in fact, now we have a comprehensive plan that's underway, and it is to a great extent due to the number of citizens who have become engaged in the process.
And educated on it. Thank you.
Yes, Tom. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Tom Hoppe, and I live at Unchucker Avenue here in Kingston. Thank you very much for making the trip and contributing to our knowledge of a different form of government than the one we're used to. A couple of points. Charlie Landy and I are the two most previous finance chairs for the city. So Charlie was finance chair for quite a while. I was there for the previous 2 years of the term. So that's why I think our questions tend more towards that budgetary format of, where does the bonding come from, who prepares the budget, things along those lines. We do have a Kingston resident who is a village manager down in Westchester, Mike Mills, who his sister is on the Common Council at the present time and is chair of finance. So there is sort of an overlap there. We do have some background. The village of Ellenville here in Ulster County does have a village manager form of government. And that would be, just a side note though, on the reval portion, we went through that process back in, I think, 2007, 2008, in that neighborhood. It is very politically painful. And the assessors and the comptrollers and assessors both changed during that period of time, and there was quite a perception that different neighborhoods were treated differently, and there was a lot of constant reval going on in the years that followed to try and make those adjustments and catch them up. So we are at 100% valuation at this time, and it does work better in the long term, but in the short term, it is a painful process, without a doubt. Just going back to the forms of the city manager and the forms of government, if you don't include the capital district and you don't include Westchester County, in the Hudson Valley, there's 6 or 7 cities. I think you mentioned already Newburgh, and Poughkeepsie was brought up, and I'm not sure how. I'm familiar with the Newburgh form, but I'm not quite familiar with the form in Poughkeepsie. I know they have a mayor. I think they do have an administrator as well. In Middletown, I believe it's a strong mayor form.
I'm not sure. They don't have an administrator or a manager. So I'm not sure the form.
And in Hudson, I think it's a strong manager form as well.
Strong mayor.
Strong mayor.
Strong mayor. So I think one of the things that confronts us, and as you are probably aware, some 25 years ago, we in fact went through a vote on the city manager form of government, and it was never fully implemented, and then it was reverted back to a strong mayor form of government. So this is a dialogue. Certainly I was in favor of a strong mayor form of government, and Rebecca and I have had this conversation running over a period of time. But I think it's an important notion. What you're bringing to the table tonight is very important, and I think why you have some members, 4 members or so, of the council here tonight, because it's just something that as time changes and circumstances change, to look at variations on these different forms of government. So you are bringing that to us and allowing us to formulate some opinions about the different ways. But I think at the end of the day, I think what matters most to the residents of a city is providing services and what you charge for those services. So what it costs to live in a community. I don't know how our budget of some $36 to $37 million per person, per population, compares with either Beacon or with New Rochelle. So I don't know how that breaks out population-wise.
Yeah, we have about 15,000 in an operating budget at least of about 18 million. So yours is what, 30?
36 to 37.
So you're double the budget and a little less than double population.
We have 78,000 and our budget's 120 million. Operating budget, but I don't know what you have here. We have a professional fire department, so we have an all-paid fire department.
We do.
And a police department and our public works. You're on the council, so you know what the services are that we provide. So I guess we're 78,000, 120 million is the budget.
Okay. Now, the other thing that Charlie asked me to bring up when I got up here was, we also have the base proportion rate. One of the things that we have to vote on each year when we adopt the budget, we do the capital budget, we do the budget, the operating budget, and we do a thing about homestead, non-homestead. So Kingston has that. It is always a source of contention. It is always a source of discussion. We have a group right now that are preparing recommendations in coordination with Jerry Benjamin's group out of SUNY New Paltz that are trying to look at it and get to the bottom of exactly what are the numbers we're talking about here and which direction we should go. Is that true in either of your cities?
Yes, we have homestead, non-homestead rates as well. It has been part of the fabric of discussion, I guess I would say, for many years, but it's also been in place for many years. And there has been more recent discussion about maybe we should just see if we can do away with that. I don't know how far that conversation would go, and that would be a very large, you still have to raise the same amount of money, so if you're not getting it from the same folks, you're now flipping it to the homestead portion of your tax base, so I'm not sure that that would really get very far, but we have it. It's a point of discussion for a variety of different reasons.
We haven't reassessed, so we don't have it. What we have is, what we've seen, unfortunately, is that because we haven't reassessed and because commercial properties have come in for big certiorari's, we have seen the burden on the residential. We have residential and commercial, that's it. And the residential now is 75% of the tax burden versus, used to be close to 50-50, it's now 75-25. So that's one of the results of not reassessing. But I've often said, I don't know how you did it here, I've often said the only way New Rochelle will reassess is if all 7 members of the council decide that they're going to be serving in their last term of office and decide not to run again, then they'll vote maybe to do the right thing. Not politically, but it causes us a lot of problems, not having a reassessment.
In Kingston, it is roughly 52-48 or 51-49 in that neighborhood. And they're trying to bring it down to 1. Right now it's 1, and the business or non-homestead is 1.8. And they think the balance lies somewhere between 1 and 1.5 or 1 and 1.2 in that ratio. But that is, I mean, to a lot of us, there are more efficient forms of government. There are, we can have those kind of discussions about professionalism, and those are important discussions, and I think you brought that to us tonight. But at the end of the day, it is about the services that a community looks for and what they're willing or able to afford to pay for those services. I know New Rochelle has a rather significant mall within the city, does it not?
No, that's one of our problems. We had a mall, but it's closed. We have maybe you're thinking of White Plains, which, it's interesting. Just a couple of things. New Rochelle, as a city, people don't understand, probably the same thing as in Kingston, but in New Rochelle, the city government is responsible for 18% of your property taxes. So if you pay, let's take an average number, it's going to sound horrifying to you, but it's the average where we are, rounded up a little bit, about $20,000 a year in property taxes. The city's getting $3,600 of that per residential household. And from my perspective, that's a pretty good deal for the police, fire, 2 garbage pickups, yard waste, leaf pickup, everything that you get. Unfortunately, schools are very expensive as they are here and everywhere else. That's about 68% of the property tax bill, and we have Westchester County that takes up the rest. So you are right. At the end of the day, the question is, what do people want? What kind of services do they want, and how much are they willing to pay for? And unfortunately, my opinion is now people want a lot of services, but they don't want to pay for anything. And that's a problem that's compounded by the state imposing a tax cap, which is an artificial, politically motivated piece of legislation. Local governments should be able to, and local city councils should be able to determine what their citizens are going to pay in property taxes, and if they make the wrong decision, they'll be out. They'll get voted out. to have the state do it for us, I think is
Well,
silly.
on the governor's proposal to freeze that and to reimburse individual taxpayers if the city has the will to freeze that, I mean, are you generally supportive, or?
My position is that that is a political gimmick. It's just so that the state can send you a check a little bit before the election so that they all look good while they're running again. But at the end of the day, they'd be better served providing municipalities more direct aid so that they could keep the tax rate at a reasonable level in their cities. So I personally, for reasons I want to get into, New Rochelle had our own personal individual tax cap for 10 years prior to the implementation of this tax cap. And it has, in my opinion, single-handedly almost ruined our ability to operate, because when people realize that the difference between 2% and 3% is $4 a year, they're generally willing to pay that $4 to make sure their garbage gets picked up. But when the number is focused on the percentage, if the city of New Rochelle raises our taxes 5%, at the end of the day, that's less than 1% of your total tax bill, and it ends up being about $20 a year. Most people, when you explain that, they're willing to do that because they want the services that we provide. So we stayed at the tax cap this year. We're on a fiscal year budget. We met the tax cap, but at the end of the day, there's 75% of our budget, your budget, is employees. It's people, salaries and benefits, and of that, almost all of it is in police, fire, and public works. So if you're going to stay with this tax cap and commit to it, you're going to have to reduce services or eliminate services. There's just no, it's mathematically impossible to do it over an extended period of time. And that's why you'll see all the tricks are going to be up pretty soon. You're going to spend down your fund balance, you're going to freeze positions to a level that you think you can do, and then eventually you have no other choice. You either say, you know what, we're not going to pick up the leaves. Next month, we collect leaves curbside. You put a pile out, and the truck comes along and picks them up. Next month, we'll have a public hearing to eliminate that service. You got to put them in a bag, you got to mulch them, or you got to have your gardener, if you have one, take them away.
It works.
But it's politically difficult. It's like another thing.
This is a great dialogue, and I appreciate your raising important questions. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure there aren't any other questions. And also just wanted to say, I think you raised a very important point, Chuck, about the willingness to pay and the cost of services ultimately. And it's something that we might be willing to explore here, just as we did with Dr. Benjamin for the county charter, where we looked at the different counties and we compared the cost of services for the taxpayer, and that thought about that in relation to the form of government. Ellen, you had a question.
I do. I'm Ellen DeFalco. Thank you for the opportunity. My question is to you, Jennifer, and to Rebecca. What basis did you use to ask these two individuals to come here tonight? Because they don't really fit into our city of Kingston. So,
I can get that question is for Rebecca. Rebecca was, thank you, Ellen.
So just to clarify, what do you mean they don't fit into the city of Kingston?
well,
Just so I understand.
the city of Beacon has a city population of 15,565 roughly. The New Rochelle has a population of 78,388 approximately. And the salary range for these individuals and their staff are out of the realm for what we would be able to afford. Now, the Beacon, City of Beacon, the mayor.
Ellen, do you mind just speaking to the
Oh.
mic so
I thought it was loud enough.
well,
Sorry. The City of Beacon, the mayor makes significantly less than the administrator, and the clerical position under the mayor makes more than the mayor, if I'm not mistaken, okay, which is
It's a part-time mayor's
Kind of-
position.
kind of- Okay, so we didn't really go into salaries of the officials. And the city manager makes a great deal. And if we, as City of Kingston, were to go to this form of government, we wouldn't be able to afford it. And my point being also on the county level, if the county residents knew what the charter form of government was going to cost them now, had they voted now, as whenever they, what was it, 2000 and,
It was 2007 when
Seven.
we voted, 2009
okay,
we started.
if they knew then, because they voted it in without knowing what the overall cost was going to be, and now when they peel away those layers, it's very expensive. So that's my point.
Well, you know, as a citizen, I think that the $75,000 salary of the mayor is a little arbitrary. I don't even know what that's based on. With a $36 million budget, to me, that seems a little low.
It is a very low salary
Right.
for
And
the
I
mayor.
also feel, you know, and it's just my opinion, and that the council salaries are low. I also feel that the elected officials' job descriptions and how they work together is incredibly light. So I think if things were more efficient, even in that context, in making more clear what our elected officials' positions are, how they function together, maybe the public would feel better about, you know, getting into a discussion. Let me answer your question first.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Perhaps not. But, you know, I think if you did a real search and looked at a $36.8 million budget and what someone who's running a company would be provided for that, it would be considerably more. And I don't know if $75,000 is enough to really attract myself the kind of talent that you might need in the future. No, I don't know if someone is, yes. Yeah.
You wanted to answer,
So-
I think you wanted to answer the question.
I do, but I'm prefacing
Oh, no,
this.
just wondering about the time and stuff.
Yeah, we're okay for a
We started out with
moment.
a 1 and
So
2
let me,
type of thing, and it's
Do
just
you
not
have any
doing it.
more, do you have any?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a time.
So let me just answer quickly. So when we looked into bringing Meredith and Chuck here, we were really fortunate. I started with a conversation with Jennifer, who's knowledgeable on the subject, and I spoke to a professor in Albany who trains and hires or educates people who are looking to move into public administration and city manager, professional manager positions. And I had a wonderful conversation with him. When he heard about Kingston and what we were looking to do, he made some recommendations. He's respected by the International Council of Managers, an association, the New York State Council of Managers. So we really went to the top. And he felt that Meredith was a great contact for me to make, and I couldn't agree more. I drove to Beacon, sat in front of her, had a conversation, and invited her to come. And she helped me to find Chuck to show city manager and some of the difference to help the public to get a better understanding of both, because I would probably be, it's safe to say that most of us don't understand how these forms of government work. So I hope that answers your question.
Do we have it, Jerry, are you?
I don't know, if we're gonna have time, I've just. thought we're
Just
gonna-
because he hasn't had a chance to ask, would you mind if he goes
I don't
ahead?
know, maybe gonna
And
split
let's
the
keep
debate.
the last 5 minutes, let's just keep the questions short and,
Well, yeah.
and,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
thanks, Jerry.
I wanted to
Thank
make
you.
some observations of things, just about form, of the relation of form and function. Because what we're looking at here is a different form of government, and so you want to look to say, when you change the form, how can you expect that, how can you anticipate that will change the function? What you've done in the city manager system, by its nature, is you've reduced the politicization of the government. You've removed an office, So you have, so that's one of the pieces you do. You also have a government that is more by committee and less by strong single leadership. You're a compromise halfway between a committee and a strong mayor, and so you have an administrator. You also have in your positions, I'd say, much more education than you will normally see in any mayor system. You are professionals, the mayors are generally not professionals. The other case is going to be that since you are structured by committee, you are going to be less volatile in the government. And you're also going to have possibly less vision as somebody who's going to strong and enunciate something very strongly. As an example, not pro or con on the system here, but our mayor has a strong Midtown revitalization program. That doesn't necessarily emerge from a committee. And in some of the cases, like in terms of reassessment, because you have a committee, you don't have a strong leader to say, we're going to reassess. Because you have a committee structure, so it's halfway. So I'm looking for the depoliticization of the thing. I think those are the basic functions you're going to find. Whether you're going to, I guess one other piece too, is in the contrast of your government, New Rochelle's rich. So you aren't going to get a lot of money back from the state. Kingston does fairly well.
I would disagree with that.
Well, you may not feel rich, but let me suggest that if you look at the cost of the housing and such, you got a lot more money, and you may value education a bit more than community. Kingston is basically a low-income and predominantly renting system and a county seat, so it's a lot of wealth.
We have, but I would just point out, you're right, we have some wealthy areas, and we have some inner-city impoverished areas, so we're not
But what we have is in a strong mayor system is we have a more volatile system.
Do you want to respond to that?
I don't think I disagree.
Okay.
One more quick.
Yeah, those are very interesting points.
One more
okay,
quick question.
Can you make it quick?
Sure. Real quick. My name is Joseph DeFalco, and I'd like to elaborate on what this gentleman had said, that he's a $180,000 middle-class income person. In Kingston, we have people working 2 jobs, making $35,000, and there are middle-class income people. And the second thing that this gentleman mentioned, that the administrator or controller, whatever you call yourself, is selected by the Common Council, and there's no partisans involvement in it, is totally a mistake. Because if you think that there is no intertwining invisible hand between the political power system and the power structure, you're making a mistake. Because ultimately, you will take the opportunity away from the voters and give it to the power bosses of the political committees, and they will have the leverage.
Mr. DeFalco, do you have a question?
No, this is what I want to elaborate on, what this gentleman had said.
But actually, this is a panel on city manager.
It is.
Yes,
And
so-
he mentioned economy, and he mentioned, this is all relatively related.
Right.
So, all right, I'll catch you next time at your next meeting, and I am prepared, but I think I'll save it for the next time.
I think you raised some very important questions. We have a very different economy here. We have to think about what the efficiencies are, what the culture of Kingston is. This is just the beginning of a dialogue about different forms of government and ways of looking at how we can all become engaged and learn more about our city government. That's really, it began with this because of what Rebecca described as an interesting conversation with a professional city management expert in Albany. And so it led us to some very willing, and by the way, thank you very much, members of the New York City County Management Association, which in their mission is to help educate communities on forms of government. And so we really want to thank you, Meredith and Chuck, as well as Jerry Fiala, who is, I'm not sure, you're the executive director of the that association. And so together they've thought very carefully about how to bring this information to us today and to bring it to many communities. And so that's their mission in a nonpartisan way, just to share this information. If you have ideas about future panels, things you'd like to learn about, ways that we can begin to answer other questions, we welcome that. That's a part of what we're about. So, and of Kingston Citizens. So like us on Facebook, and you have something to add and
I just
close
wanted
with?
to very quickly add in response to the concern about the
Oh, yes,
cost
thank
of
you.
us. And that is, I think you have to look at both sides. There's an expense side of a budget and a revenue side of the budget. So in terms of the question of whether or not you pay for a professional to come in, there's two sides. So yes, there might be a salary that you pay that you're not happy about paying. However, what the professional brings to the community may save you so much more. And I can give you just a few very quick examples. It took me 5 years, but I worked with 3 unions to get an overhaul of our health benefits program that is estimated to save about $300,000 a year, not counting the Cadillac tax that would be on top of that and that sort of thing. So, excuse me. We're in our first year, so we don't have the hard numbers yet, but that was the estimate. We changed workers' comp providers, saved about $125,000 doing that. We did an audit of our electric and telephone bills and that sort of thing. We just got a check back for about $250,000. So those are just 3 quick things. So I think just in closing that you just need to look at both sides of the equation. Yes, there is a cost, because in order to get somebody who's really going to do the job, you're going to have to pay for it to some extent. But there's also the other side of the equation, and what they do for a living and what they will bring to the community I would suggest to you be well worth it.
I would just add one thing. I can't speak for what would happen here when you appoint the city manager, but I can tell you that there is one person left on the city council that appointed me. So, and it has nothing, at least in New Rochelle, it has nothing to do with party leaders. I don't even converse with the party leaders. I don't even talk to them. I've worked for 3 mayors and probably 20 council people, and the council has been gone through a complete overhaul, and so I don't know how it would work here. I have no idea what your politics are. I have no idea what your political systems are, but I can tell you, and you could even ask them, the party leaders in New Rochelle have 0 say on who the city manager is.
Well, thank you so much for your riveted attention and for being engaged. Let's keep it up.
Thank you.